G'day legends, welcome to a new video. In this one, I'm going into Lightroom and Photoshop to show you how best to upsize your image for printing use. So one of my members of the water photography course has just landed a sale and the client wants to go 1.2 meters wide. So quite a large enlargement, and they sent their file off to the lab and it was incorrect size or the wrong DPI. There's a few issues with it. So I thought I'd make this video for everyone so that if you get a print sale or if you want to make a large print off your digital camera, or then you know the best settings, I'm going to show you in Lightroom as well as Photoshop. So either one you use, you'll be able to output for the lab to get best results. So this is for printing labs and not for print press labs. So now we'll go into Lightroom and show you how to get them out of Lightroom and saved at the right size for your print. Okay, crew, so we are inside Lightroom. For those that don't know me, by the way, my name's Tom Woods. I'm a professional photographer, have been full-time since 2004, and I take water and surf photos and lots of travel photos as well. And I'm trying to help everyone on YouTube that wants to listen. So, so let's just pick a photo that I took a couple of days ago. I am going to export this one for printing out of Lightroom. So the first thing you do is come up into this file and you go down to export. It'll bring up this window. Now note that I am in Lightroom Classic. So if you've got both versions of Lightroom, there's a Lightroom and a Lightroom Classic, and Lightroom is a mobile version, or maybe even it's a free version, but it doesn't give you as many options. You need these options to make sure that you get the maximum quality out of your file. So first of all, if you were going to do work in Photoshop, what I suggest is that you export this file. You come into image format, and I like to go TIFF. You can go JPEG, but make sure you don't go on the high quality. But let's just say you want to do some work in Photoshop before you actually go to the print lab. So you're going to size it in Photoshop. So if you want to do that, you go TIFF. You make sure your color space is, sometimes I go into Adobe RGB 98 and then switch the color profile in Photoshop, just to keep it less confusing. sRGB is probably where you want to be for your print labs output, so we'll leave it there. You can upscale this to 16-bit, but once again, before you send it to the lab, you've got to downscale. So to keep it simple and for not much quality improvement, you best leave this at 8-bit. In the image sizing, you make sure this is not resized to fit, because we're going to do some work in Photoshop first. We're not just going straight to the lab from here. I'll show you that in the next output. And I leave sharpening off, and I do nothing there, and that's pretty much it. So that's going to output a TIFF, but it's going to retain all my file size, and make sure this, crucial, make sure this resolution is on 300. By default, a lot of Lightroom programs, especially the one that's not the classic, has it at 72, and that's when 72 DPI, and that's when you're going to get in trouble. So this has to be per inch as well, not per centimeter. So it's 300 per pixels per inch. Okay. So, and then obviously you've got to nominate where it's going. And in this case, I'm going to keep it with my folders, and I choose and I export. So that's now going to export a TIFF. Now that's for working on Photoshop. Okay, so we're in Photoshop and we've got our high resolution TIFF file. So if we go into our image size, it's a 128 meg file, so quite a sizey file. It is 8,000 by about 5,500 pixels wide. So that is what my camera's full strength is. We're going to upsize this because you can see in inches it's 27 by 18. If we go into centimeters, it's 69 by about 46. We are going to upsize this to about 1.2 meters because that's what the client wants for this print. But the reason why I go into Photoshop and not straight from Lightroom is I like using Photoshop just to clean up things. So if I just didn't like this, I could go into, say, the remove tool, and there's just this little highlight that you can just get around. So it's just cleaning up any dust spots or anything like that that's distracting and might not, just might want to take out a few things. I'm not going to stuff around too much today, but you can bring up the levels, just make sure that you're all in check there. That's for you to decide. But yeah, it's just a good place for me to settle into the image. I've seen it in Lightroom. Now I'm seeing it in Photoshop, and I can make my adjustments. Now, probably the easiest way to upsize your image is to go back into that image size, and then we are going to go down to centimeters. And I know that they want us to print at 1.2 meters, so 120 centimeters. So I type in 120, and I make sure that this link is here, so it keeps the dimensions. So you can then go at 120 by 80 centimeters. Make sure the resolution is at 300 pixels per square inch. And you can, because we're upsizing, the best one that's recommended by most of the printers that I've used over the 24 years that I've been printing photos is this one here, Bicubic Smoother for Enlargements. I think that's the one that's recommended, and I've had really good results with it. You could also preserve details in enlargement if it's a super large one. I think this one's suggested, but 1.2 meters is big, but it's not super big. So for this one, and for most situations, I'd choose this one. Okay, so you can see it up here. It was 128 meg, and now it's going to push this out to 383 meg. And the dimensions have changed from about 8,000 by 5.5 to 14,000 by about 9.5. So it is upsizing. We go okay, and that'll take a little while, not too long. And now this has been upsized. So if we go into image size, we can see that it's sized at 128. Or if we go into inches, it's 47 by about 31 inches. Okay, and now it's best to do is go File, Save As. Don't save this, save as, because then then you can make this I'd rename this file and just name the size that you want it printed. So it's 120 by 80 centimeters, and it's a TIFF, and most labs like JPEG. So we switch it to a JPEG and hit save, and make sure I've always got this, by default it's normally about 9 or 10. Make sure this is at maximum, so it's not going to lose any quality whatsoever. Well, it's going to compress the least, let's say. It's going to take the file down to 52 meg, so it's a bit more sendable than 380 meg per photo. You go okay, and now that's saved it, but it's saved it as a different version to your TIFF, so you can go back to your TIFF at any time. So this is the JPEG that we've got to send to the printers. It's sized at 120 by 80, the exact size that we want it printed at. And we've got the TIFF, we've got the original TIFF. And the reason why that is, like, you don't want to keep opening JPEGs, because every time you open JPEGs, they have got a destructive nature, so they get less and less quality. So keep the TIFF as the original, and then that's the one you send off to the lab. Now, let's just bring that TIFF back into Photoshop, and say if you did want it to not be the same dimensions. So this is a 2:3 ratio, so 120 by 80 centimeters is 2:3 ratio. Instead, we want to crop it, but this time we want to go 120 wide centimeters, but we want it a lot squarer. So say 120 by 100 centimeters. This is how you crop, and make sure this is at 300 dpi. And now you make your crop like that off the TIFF. And now that image size is as you want it. Let's go into centimeters. You can see it's 120 by 180, and then you can save that out. So that's just thought I'd show you that, just so you can see that if you didn't want the 2:3 ratio, that you use the crop tool to then get the right ratio. So once again, JPEG, we save that and we make sure it's in maximum quality. Okay, so we're going to go back into Lightroom now, and we'll go export, and let's just say that we don't like using Photoshop. We're happy with the photo. There's no need to go into Photoshop. we just want to send this to a place where we can get it printed. So we want to go into JPEG, choose the file JPEG, definitely make sure this is turned up to 100, make sure this is unticked. We don't limit the file size at all. We want to keep it in sRGB, and we want to resize to fit. So we actually want to upsize this image, and we want to, first of all, we're going to go into centimeters for this one. You can obviously choose whatever you want, but remember we wanted 120 centimeters by 80 centimeters. That's the end output what we want to print. So 1.2 meters by 80 centimeters. And we make sure the resolution is at 300. This is crucial. This is what printers look for, probably more than anything, this 300 DPI. I sharpen in Photoshop, but so I do it a little bit differently. But if I was going straight out of Lightroom, I would sharpen here for either gloss or matte paper. So if you are going on glossy paper, choose glossy. Always go standard. I wouldn't go high with this. And then you are all set. You've got your JPEG, you've got your sRGB, you are sizing it out at 120 by 80 centimeters. And then it's just make sure you go, this is where people get tripped up. Sometimes they don't recognize where they're saving it. So you've got to go up to this where you're exporting to, choose specific folder. So I want to choose this folder. This is where the photo lives, and I'm just going to make a new folder and say print for lab, something like that, and then choose that, and we're exporting that, and that'll export out of this straight ready for you to upload. So if I go into my Finder, I can see there that I've got a 60 meg file, very similar to if we go into the sized file that we got before out of Photoshop. It was 55 meg, and straight out of Lightroom 60 meg. So very, very similar file size. You can check the file size by going in here, and you can see. So now you've got a 60 meg file, which is reasonably big, but it is a 1.2 meter print. So you now can send this via the Print Labs software off to them, or Dropbox it to them, or WeTransfer it. And they will get a file that will print enough. Okay, so with that information, you should be able to now export any of your high-resolution digital files to then be perfectly optimized for print. So the Print Labs are happy with your file size, and they will print at their best quality. Got any more questions, please let me know, but I'll put information below this video to find out more about what I offer.